You feel as though your facial features are a bit on the dainty or delicate side. You are often compared to pixie-like features. You look at home in doll-like garments. This is a deep dive into John Kitchener's Essence system, the Kitchener Essences. We're gonna do a deep dive into dark aesthetics though for the Ingenue Essence. So although this is an analysis of how to go about a dark aesthetic if you have Ingenue Essence, please keep in mind that there are some things that I derive away from the traditional Kitchener Essences, just because I feel as though there are some things that are a bit outdated when it comes to these archetype systems. For example, one of the methods that John Kitchener uses that I kind of want to step away from, that wasn't even started by him, is the idea of using yin and yang in these systems. When it comes to the archetypes of dramatic, natural, Ingenue, Gamine, etc., they are on a scale of yin and yang. And I want to derive away from this usage of yin and yang because when this was first thought of, I believe in the 1930s, there's an article Belle Northrop did an article on called An Approach to the Problem of Costume and Personality. Now, although she was onto something and her system birthed what we know today from Kitchener and Kibbe, there are some things that I don't quite agree with. The main thing with yin and yang is that it comes from Taoist principles, and I feel like where we see yin and yang in Kitchener and Kibbe, I don't quite agree with, just because it fully takes away from Taoist beliefs, and I kind of just don't want to appropriate from that anymore. And instead of using yin, I want to use the terminology softer, and instead of yang, we're going to use angular. And yin and yang was mainly used because Belle Northrop, and then followed by Kibbe and followed by Kitchener, was to step away from using the words feminine and masculine when referring to facial features and body types. However, I feel like we can still use the terms softer and angular, and there's nothing wrong with having any of those traits within our body and our face. And with that being said, where does Ingenue fit on this scale of archetype? So Ingenue is on the more soft and rounded side of the spectrum, but unlike romantic and ethereals, they are associated with being dainty and having soft features, which is actually very similar to Gamine, except Gamine is going to be a bit more on the angular side, whereas Ingenue is going to have a bit more smaller, delicate features. So one of the main requests that I got before I did this Ingenue video was to do a compare and contrast of what is Gamine essence like in comparison to Ingenue. Now, something to keep in mind though is you can have actually both essences. I feel as though Jenna Ortega is the immediate example I think of that has both Gamine and Ingenue, but let's compare the two. So for my examples, I'm going to be using Jenna Malone as my Gamine reference, and then Emily Browning as my Ingenue reference. And both of them were actually featured in Sucker Punch, and I think Sucker Punch is actually a great dark aesthetic inspiration for style and fashion. Now, as you can see with Gamine, they have much more angular and sharper features, but Jenna Malone still has those dainty features just as Emily Browning does. But Emily Browning's features are a bit more on the rounder and soft side. Now, where they do meet and have similarities is they are both dainty and delicate, and small scale details tend to look really at home on them. Their features are often compared to pixie-like features, fairy-like features, and doll-like garments tend to look really good on both of them. Okay, let's talk about the ultimate dark aesthetic muse that so many people already take inspiration from, and is probably our introduction to dark aesthetics, is Morticia Addams. Now, of the different Morticias that we have seen in film and TV, we have seen actually different face essences of Morticia. The earliest Morticia live action that we have seen is the 1960s version of the Addams Family. Now, as we see the 1960s version of Morticia, she has dainty and soft features, and overall, even as she got older, she always upheld this youthful look to her, which is often associated with an ingenue look. However, I do want to state that looking young and having that look to you does not automatically make you ingenue. It's just the features of an ingenue, which is soft, dainty and smallish features tend to be associated with youthful features. The Morticia Addams that we see portrayed by Anjelica Huston, her features are more prominently dramatic. So this Morticia felt as though she had stronger, more angular features. The most recent Morticia we see in Catherine Zeta-Jones, she is more romantic. So when it comes to finding out your face essence in general, or if you're just determining if this is one of your face essence, there are these obvious technical terms that we have heard from Kitchener, Kibbe, other content creators, and they're all small, dainty, roundish. But I feel like when it comes to your face essence in general, it is an overall feeling. And here are some abstract ideas and terms that remind me of an ingenue essence. They remind me of a beloved Victorian-esque doll, faint piano sounds, a Monet painting, floral prints on organza fabric, delicate porcelain dishes, a folktale told through generations, the main character of a Brothers Grimm fairy tale. Okay, let's talk about garments and silhouettes on the body and what looks the most at home on an ingenue face essence. Now, this doesn't just apply to if ingenue is one of your more prominent essence. Even if it is a tertiary essence, I feel as though these fabrications and silhouettes can still look at home on you. There are people who have ingenue as like their last essence, and some of these details, even in small doses, still look great on them. Because ingenue is one of the more daintier and small featured of the archetypes, short lines and silhouettes, whether they're dresses, shorts, or just abrupt lines, they tend to look at home on them. When it comes to fabrication, because they don't have those strong angular features, lightweight and softer fabrications or pieces that flow tend to look great on them. Again, they are the daintier of the archetypes, so smaller details. Think lace, small floral prints, rounded details also look great on them, small scale patterns, and delicate trims. In a previous video, I talked about getting dark aesthetic inspiration from fantasy muses such as vampire, witch, and haunted doll. Now, when it comes to an ingenue essence, I feel like there's a lot of overlap with a lot of the inspirations that I talked about for the haunted doll archetype. Fairy can also fit perfectly well with ingenue, but a lot of what I'm going to be talking about and a lot of the obvious inspirations that we see in mainstream media do fall under the haunted doll archetype I talked about in that video. Meaning a lot of these puff sleeve garments, a lot of ribbons, doll-like pieces and garments and inspiration, taking a lot of inspiration from the Lolita subculture that we see in Japan, Crimson Peak, a lot of runway shows that have big ruffles and a lot of poofs and organza and a lot of dreamy type of garments. Now, when it comes to hairstyles, obviously wear whatever hairstyle feels at home on you. And also keep in mind, if you have a blend of essences, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into these hairstyles that I'm going to be talking about. But I do notice that some people who have ingenue as one of their more obvious essences, these type of hairstyles tend to glow on them. So some of the hairstyles I can think of in terms of accessories is fairy-like flowers that we see on Kate Moss here. Ribbons is probably the most obvious. Sandy Liang type of models, etc. All like curls, so specifically ringlets, or Mina Lei as we see in this top right photo. I definitely think ingenue is one of her prominent essences, and she wears a lot of period type of hairstyles. I believe this one takes inspiration from the 1920s, and I feel like those type of curls look great on ingenues. Braids, pigtails, or just hairstyles that feel playful in general. Take inspiration from Victorian dolls, the Lolita subculture, fairy tales, and fairies. Now, when it comes to makeup, there's gonna be some overlap with some of my previous videos. If you think about it, it's because a lot of these archetypes, they do have some crossover. So some of the makeup I'm going to be showing for ingenue is definitely going to overlap with ethereal because they are a bit on the more soft and rounded side. But it can also overlap with Gamine because it's on the daintier side. So for the makeup inspiration, I feel as though soft and doll-like makeup will always look at home on an ingenue. So think glossy lips or a milky pink type of gloss that you typically would see on a Victorian doll. The manual lash, or sometimes referred to as a manga lash, where the lashes are a bit separated and again look doll-like. I feel like this would look so at home on an ingenue. Pastel eyeshadows or any whimsical type of eyeshadow look would look great on them. Really have fun with this. I feel like light brows or lightly feathered brows also look at home on an ingenue. It is actually often dissuaded for ingenues to not wear heavy makeup. I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like as though you have to know what you're doing and be very intentional with it. But naturally, lighter type of makeup tends to look at home on an ingenue. Okay, let's talk about some ingenue muses. Now, again, keep in mind when it comes to face essences, you can have a blend of them. So some of the people that I'm going to be showing you may not have ingenue as their only essence, but what I'm focusing on is that the style that they portray exudes a strong ingenue look and it really brings out their ingenue essence. Also, please keep in mind that I try not to make my videos 2 hours long, so if I don't include your favorite ingenue muse, please don't take any offense to it. I'm only one person and I can only do so much. Okay, so for my first muse, I want to talk about Jenna Ortega. Now, when it comes to Jenna Ortega, please keep in mind that she has a bit of Gamine and ingenue. And I would actually say it's pretty 50-50. When it comes to her facial features, she does have obvious, dainty, and delicate bone structure that is often associated with both Gamine and ingenue. And when it comes to the roles that she is often typecasted in, she is very often casted as a younger role. As we know, she is Wednesday Addams, and recently she is casted as the daughter in Beetlejuice to Winona Ryder. She overall has doll-like features, so whenever she is in ruffly pieces, high neck tops with a bit of a ribbon or corset detail, like we see, like how she was dressed in the Met Gala, it looked amazing on her. I still think about those looks today. And overall, she just looks at home in dainty details, short lines, and silhouettes. For my next muse, you may already know her from TikTok. She may have graced your For You page showing off her generational goth dances or like showing how to do certain goth dance moves that she learned from her mom, which I thought was so cool. And she is overall a super sweet person altogether. Her Instagram is Panbox and her TikTok I will put here as well. Now, although ingenue is not her only essence, the first thing I noticed about her are her dreamy doll-like eyes, which are iconic ingenue eyes. I would say ethereal and maybe a hint of dramatic along her jawline is there as well, but I want to use her as an ingenue muse. She glows in doll-like details, lacy pieces, and dreamy gowns. Her style does take a lot of inspiration from the goth subculture. She is a generational goth. Her signature hairstyle are these braids and pigtails that we often see on her. And she exemplifies how an ingenue essence can look and style herself in a variety of ways. Another reason why I wanted to show Pandora as an example of an ingenue essence and dressing in a dark aesthetic way is that she does a mix of heavy and light makeup, which can still look absolutely beautiful on an ingenue face. She goes very light on her brows, but sometimes she wears a black lipstick and it still looks very good on her. Same thing with the details. She wears often like heavy hardware jewelry, but then you mix that in with like the lacy garments that are soft and flowy, and it is all about intention and a bit of balance. My next dark aesthetic muse who has an ingenue prominent face essence is Josie, or as you may know her as Dreamy Creeps on Instagram, and then also please check out her YouTube channel. So overall, she has an ingenue face with a hint of romantic essence in some of her features. Now, when I was talking to her, we both kind of concluded that her style overall is a dolly clown aesthetic. She is known for her signature puff dresses. She looks amazing in empire waist silhouettes and short lines altogether that I mentioned looks really at home on an ingenue essence. I love that she takes a lot of inspiration from a dark aesthetic clown in her makeup, as well as some of the fun, whimsical details such as her collar. Okay, speaking of collars and signature pieces, what should be your ultimate checklist or your beginner's guide if you are starting to dress based off of your face essences? And Ingenue is one of your main essences. So I'm going to be linking down some of the pieces that I'm going to be talking about down below. You don't at all have to shop from those specific links. Those are just meant to be a starting point, just so you have an idea of what to look for. So first off, I feel like as though a puff sleeve or a dress, like a basic that you can throw on, is a must. Ribbon accessories for your hair, for earrings, etc. It's also a great easy DIY, so it'll be great to have like just black ribbon on hand to do it yourself, certain pieces, and just add it on to things. An oversized collared button-up, or even an oversized collar accessory that you can add to a top. Bloomers or ruffled skirt or shorts is great. And in terms of shoes, the key here when it comes to Ingenue is looking for shoes that are a bit on the more rounded side, whether they're platform Mary Janes or just rounded flats in general. And even if you go for a square toe, such as the flats that I have pictured here, see how it's not too sharp, it's still slightly rounded like you see on a ballet slipper. When it comes to shopping online, whether it's on Depop or eBay, here are some of the keywords that I recommend looking into. If you watched this whole thing, thank you so much. If you are a Patreon member, please remember that everything that I showed, I'm going to pack into a cute little PDF for you to reference later on. If you ordered a style guide, I cannot thank you enough for being patient with me. Life has been crazy with work, and then I have been on and off sick. I know that sounds like excuses, but just please keep in mind, I have not forgotten about you, and I'm still working on your style guides. I am aiming to have all of my style guides done by April 7. I know I haven't really been meeting my deadlines that I emailed about, and I'm so sorry. Please bear with me. I am having a very human moment where I'm very overwhelmed, and I put way too much on my plate. I'm not gonna lie about that. Thank you so much. I think after April, I think for the month of April, I'm going to be taking a break from style guides, astrology, and face essence readings altogether. I think I'm gonna need to take for the month of April to just, one, relax and take care of my immune system, but also take care of some of the systems that I have in place so that you're not waiting that long for style guides. But they are personalized and customized, so it's really hard to like copy and paste anything. So I hope you appreciate them as you get them, but keep in mind, April 7 is when everything should be out by then. I hope you have a great week, and until next time, bye.